Hello everyone, and welcome to the first attempt at something new. Live in the library. No fancy scripts or unnecessarily complicated editing here, just raw, unfiltered bull. We're doing a big no outtakes Scryfall book report today, because if I'm being completely honest, the last few scripts have been giving me trouble, but I still want to get content out for you all. So if this ends up being something y'all enjoy, maybe I'll stream the next one live. Make sure to let me know in the comments below. But, yeah, that kind of clears out the beginning paperwork. So let's get into it with our first random card. River of Tears. A land originally from Future Sight that taps to add a blue, but if you played a land this turn, add black instead. You know, I think there's a pretty obvious reason why they've never finished this cycle. This is a weird and pretty confusing ability, not gonna lie. Having to keep track of if you played a land, and that's the other thing is like, if you end up screwed and you don't draw any lands, this is just an island, a non-basic island. And then you have to like carefully think about what spells you want to cast and the mana costs, and you need to know when to tap this land for mana, because if you need the blue you need to do it before you play a land, but if you need the black you need to make sure that you play a land. There's a very good reason why they didn't make this a full cycle. It's a cool idea, don't get me wrong, but this is not the way to go about it, I don't think. I definitely much prefer the Verges from Aetherdrift and Duskmourn. I think that feels a little bit of a better way to do this kind of effect. What's next? Caravan Hurda. 4 and a white for a 1/5 giant with lifelink. From Zendikar. Not too bright, but good enough for the job required. Carrying and walking in a straight line. Oh hey, it's Bruce Tarl. Love that guy. Man, creatures used to be so different. 5 mana for a 1/5 lifelink. Wow. Nowadays you can get like 5 mana for a 5/5 lifelink. Like this is so bad. Granted, at the time, it probably blocked pretty well and was probably a real pain to get through, especially in like limited. If you don't have a removal spell, it's just gonna sit there, soak up damage, and gain you life. And like, honestly, that's pretty cool. I kind of miss the days when creatures just had simple effects like this and not 5 paragraphs of text. Yeah. 1/5 lifelink for 5. I can't get over that. That is such an abysmal rate. Ooh, boy. Definitely not something you necessarily always want to run, but there will be times when that is a very relevant body. Give this guy some equipment. You'll be fine. What's next? Ooh, Samut the Tested. 2 green and red for a legendary planeswalker Samut. +1, up to 1 target creature gains double strike until end of turn. -2, Samut deals 2 damage divided as you choose among 1 or 2 target creatures and or players. And -7, search your library for up to 2 creature and or planeswalker cards, put them onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. What a perfectly serviceable planeswalker. It downticks to sort of protect itself. You can either shock something or dual strike. And that's fine. That will definitely help clear out some of the little... Like if somebody's got a bunch of tokens, you can clear out a bunch of them to protect her, but... +1, target creature gains double strike until end of turn. It can punch through some amount of damage, but not the best effect to have on a +1. And then -7, you tooth or nail pretty much. You can find planeswalkers, which is actually pretty interesting. Don't know how many Gruul Planeswalker decks there necessarily are, because most of the time, if you're doing a Planeswalker deck, at least the ones that I've seen, it's like Commodore Guff, which is Jeskai, which can't run this, or it's something like Atraxa, Proliferate, which doesn't have red. So, cool effect, pretty decent and limited. Hour of Devastation was a pretty neat looking set. I like Amonkhet. It's a cool location. It's a shame what they did to it. But, yeah, serviceable Planeswalker. Not much more to say beyond that. Samut did fine. Magmatic Hellkite. Ooh. Alright. 2 red for a 4/5 creature dragon with flying. When this creature enters, destroy target non-basic land an opponent controls. Its controller searches their library for a basic land card, puts it onto the battlefield tapped with a stun counter on it, and then shuffles. Ah. Now this is Tarkir Dragonstorm. Oh, this is one of the ones that has little baby on the back. Look at that. Little tiny dragon. But yeah, this is a very good card. I really like it a lot. I, personally, am a huge advocate of running land destruction in decks. Not Armageddon style land destruction. That just drags out the game, makes it take forever. Everybody's just kind of stuck in top deck mode, trying to draw their lands again. And the one player who actually plays lands is getting them out of the graveyard with a Crucible of Worlds, and then they run away with it and win. You kind of expect some amount of that. However, this type of effect, I love a lot, because there are a lot of problematic lands. Like, even ignoring the big obvious ones like Cabal Coffers and Gaia's Cradle, there's things like 3-Tree City, or a Cavern of Souls, or even something like a Reliquary Tower. Hitting a Reliquary Tower with this is surprisingly effective, because usually, for the most part, if somebody's got a Reliquary Tower out, generally they'll be drawing a bunch of cards. And making them play by the same rules as you, kind of important. Also, creature lands. There's a lot of creature lands out there nowadays. All the Restless cycle, then there's the original Zendikar cycle, and then there's the ones from Dungeons and Dragons. There's a lot of non-basic lands that you can absolutely hit. Any of the lands that produce tokens, things like Phyrexian Tower, which are sack outlets on a land. There's a lot of lands that you can hit that can really open up, or like strip away a lead or something like that, and hitting a Maze of Ith with this, or a Glacial Chasm. Even if they're going to get it back next turn, that still gives you a turn to swing in and do a bunch of damage to them. Like, I am a huge fan of Magmatic Hellkite. I think a lot more people should be running effects like this. Next card. Theft of Dreams. 2 and a blue for a sorcery. Draw a card for each tapped creature target opponent controls. Alright, this is fine. It is heavily reliant on other people playing creatures and tapping them or attacking with them. So this is definitely going to be a bit of a feast or famine card. Because, like, if you go up against, like, for instance, a Storm deck, you're not drawing cards off of this. You might get 1, maybe 2. And in that case, just flat out Divination is better. But against, like, a token deck or an elf deck with a lot of mana dorks or any of those, you can just pay 3 mana, draw 5 or 6 cards. That's pretty good. I mean, heck, even if it's just 3 creatures, that's still above rate. That's pretty good. It's the age-old question of how much would you pay for Ancestral Recall? And honestly, 3 mana is not the worst. 3 mana is most certainly not the worst. Interesting art, Randy Gallegos. What's next? Trollbred Guardian. 4 and a green for a 5/5 creature troll frog warrior. Love Simic creature types. Simic creature type lines are incredible. I love it a lot. It has Adapt 2 for 2 and a green. If this creature has no 1/1 counters on it, put 2 +1/+1 counters on it. And each creature you control with a 1/1 counter on it has Trample. There's a lot of these effects. There's a beetle at 2 mana. There's a cat at 3 mana. I think there's one at almost every mana value, like, except for mana value 1. I think there's a 2, a 3, a 4, and then this one's at 5. They really like giving creatures with counters Trample. And it makes sense. If you're making your creature big, you want it to get through. This could technically be an 8 mana 7/7 with Trample, which, again, not terrible. Can definitely punch through, especially in limited. But the fact that this can hit the board and make a whole bunch of other stuff unblockable, because you can make some pretty big creatures with counters by the time you reach 5 mana. I mean, like, Hardened Scales, Ouroborroid, all of the new cards from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which, come on, Troll Frog Warrior goes right in with some of those TMNT type lines. Yeah, this one, perfectly serviceable. I think it's a reasonable include. Guilds of Ravnica, nope, Ravnica Allegiance, sorry. Ravnica Allegiance and Guilds of Ravnica was kind of when I really got back into Magic. I had gotten in, and then gotten out, and then gotten in, and then gotten out. And then I came back and I went to the pre-release for Guilds of Ravnica and Ravnica Allegiance, and been pretty dedicated since then. What's next? Ooh, Indulgent Tormentor. 3 black for a 5/3 demon with flying. At the beginning of your upkeep, draw a card unless target opponent sacrifices a creature or pays 3 life. I like effects like this. I am a huge Rakdos player. I am all about Punisher mechanics. I'm all about giving my opponents choices. I love doing that. Indulgent Tormentor, heck yeah, love that effect. Granted, there's better ones you could be playing. Especially in something like Commander. In something like Commander, this is not much. Like, they'll just pay 3 life to prevent you from drawing an extra card easily. But in many Rakdos decks, getting them to lose that 3 life is sometimes very useful. For instance, Rakdos Lord of Riots, one of my favorite Commander decks. If they pay the 3 life to prevent you from drawing a card, congratulations, all your creatures are now 3 cheaper. So, at that point, sometimes it's better for them to let you draw the card or sacrifice one of their creatures instead. You know, I love finding the specific applications for cards like this. Pretty cool card. I love weird demons that give you choices. What's next? Gnarled Professor. 2 green for a 5/4 tree folk druid with trample, and when Gnarled Professor enters the battlefield, learn. A card that has gotten better with all of the printings of lessons from Avatar. I'm wondering if we're gonna see more learn come back in the next Strixhaven set. Because, personally, I think it's a pretty cool mechanic. Granted, in Commander, the most played format, or at least the format that I play the most, you don't have a sideboard, so you can't pull lessons from your sideboard with a card like this. But even just having the option to discard a card and draw a card is pretty cool, and it's on some creatures that are in colors that don't usually get to do that. Like, there's not many green creatures that I can know of that loot like this, that discard and draw. Is that loot or is that rummage? I think it's rummaging if you discard first then draw, and it's looting if you draw then discard. But yeah, I can see I could see Learn come back as a mechanic in the next Strixhaven set, especially since they did print a bunch of lessons in Avatar. 4 mana, 5/4 trample. It's incredible what has happened to creatures. Like, between this and that giant from earlier, the 5 mana 1/5, versus a 4 mana 5/4. Ooh, magic creatures have changed. Ooh, Ichthyomorphosis. Ichthyomorphosis? Morphosis? Ichthyomorphosis. Sure. Fish. 2 and a blue for an enchantment aura. Enchanted creature loses all abilities and is a blue fish with base power and toughness 0/1. Okay, these effects need to be run more often in formats like Commander. Everybody's always going on with Path and Swords and all that kind of stuff, but sometimes just turn a thing into a fish. Remove it from having abilities. Like, if it's a creature with a passive ability that's very annoying, like, put this on a Shieldred. That way they can't reanimate it, they can't recast it if it's their commander, it just sits there. Sure, they're going to block with it as soon as anybody attacks them and it's going to die, but until then, if it's just a thing that's sitting there passively, gaining them value, fish them. Turn them into a fish. Make them lose abilities. This is not the best of these effects, but it's definitely one that works better than you might expect. I would say that the best of these types of effects are Song of the Dryads and Imprisoned in the Moon, that turn them into lands, because the lands can't block. The lands are much harder to sacrifice. Not many people run a lot of land sacrifice unless they're specifically in a sacrificing lands deck. Those types of effects, I think, or those specific cards are significantly better than any of the ones that turn them into like a fish or a citizen or a bug or a frog or what have you. Removing the ability to block is huge, because then they can't, like, you stick somebody's commander under Imprisoned in the Moon, they have to draw enchantment removal or they're not going to have their commander for like the rest of the game. That's a pretty big deal. Run more of this blue removal. That's all I'll say. Tor Wauki in Japanese. 2 black/red for a legendary creature, human archer. Tap, Tor Wauki deals 2 damage to target attacking or blocking creature. And it's a 3/3. This type of effect, honestly, pretty good. 2 damage is, I mean, it's shock. Like, it's a number that a lot of people are aware of, but it can change combat math. Like, this ability can absolutely change combat math. Somebody swinging in with, say, a 4/4. You tap Tor Wauki, you can now block it with a 2/2 bear token that you have for some reason, or a cat or something, and it'll trade with the 4/4. Or just outright kill one of the things that are attacking you. 5 mana for a 3/3 that does this is a bit much and a bit slow, granted. Like, I understand that. But hey, sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. And I love the old Legends. I kind of miss the old golden border. That was such a strange effect that they had on the multicolored frame, but I think it's better than the modern gold. Ooh, Omnivorous Flytrap in the special Duskmourn border. 2 and a green for a 2/4 creature plant with Delirium. Whenever this creature enters or attacks, if there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard, distribute 2 +1/+1 counters among 1 or 2 target creatures. Then if there are 6 or more card types among cards in your graveyard, double the number of counters on those creatures. I love Delirium. Delirium is one of my favorite mechanics in all of Magic. It's really good. I like it a lot. It requires you to play multiple card types in your deck, and it puts more emphasis on dual type cards. So everybody knows enchantment and artifact creatures, but artifact lands need to come into play. Lands that can sacrifice themselves to help fuel Delirium, so things like fetches or evolving wilds. I like that. But there's also a couple, not too many, but there's a couple of cards that are both instants and sorceries. Some of those old dual type cards from certain Ravnica blocks, where one half is an instant and one half is a sorcery. Using those, not only are they modal cards, so they give you multiple choices, but counting as two card types in the graveyard, that's pretty cool. Like, all you need is one of those, an enchantment creature and an artifact land in your graveyard, and you've got the 6 that you need. And there's something like 9 card types in Magic nowadays, because there's battles and planeswalkers and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, this is a... And then of course Kindred is the last one, which we got a couple new ones from Laurel and Eclipsed. There's a couple Kindred spells in there. The effect on this card, pretty decent. Can easily make things bigger. Goes really well with that Troll Frog hybrid whatever from Ravnica that gives your creatures with counters trample, because this will help make them big. Pretty cool. I like it a lot. I'm a big Delirium fan. I'm a big Golgari Graveyard fan. I like Dredge. Sue me, whatever. What's next? Infinite Authority. Oh, I can't wait to see how bad this is. White, white, white for an enchantment aura. Enchant creature. Whenever enchanted creature blocks or becomes blocked by a creature with toughness 3 or less, destroy the other creature at end of combat. At the beginning of the next end step, if that creature was destroyed this way, put a 1/1 counter on the first creature. This is awful. You have to attack somebody with this. You have to block with a small enough creature, but not a creature that dies to the combat damage. Oh, I'm struggling with this one. So like you put it on a 1/1, and they block it with a 0/3. The 0/3 will get destroyed at the end of combat, and you can put a 1/1 counter on the first creature. But the thing is, like, if they're chump blocking with a creature that has toughness 3 or less, it's going to get destroyed in combat damage, and you won't get the counter on Infinite Authority. Who needs this? This is... I suppose you could slap it on something and give it a lure effect so that all creatures have to block it, and then you can wipe portions of the board, but chances are if you do that, your creature's going to die. Like, Infinite Authority is so bad. And it's triple white for an aura. Oh my god, this is something else. Whew, boy. Alright, that is... wow. Horrible. Man, old cards sometimes were terrible. Ooh. Kellogg, a Dangerous Mind from Fallout. 1 black-red for a legendary creature, human mercenary, with power and toughness 3/2. It has first strike and haste. Whenever Kellogg attacks, create a treasure, sacrifice 5 treasures, gain control of target creature for as long as you control Kellogg. Activate only as a sorcery. Kellogg's decent. One of the few repeatable sources of treasures that, like, make sense to play. He's fine. I built a commander deck for him at one point. Tried to make it treasure focused. It did alright. I ended up taking it apart because it didn't excite me all that much. Getting to have 5 treasures and not using them for mana previously is harder than you think. Because it's like, would you rather cast any of the spells that you have in your hand that are 5 mana or less, or would you like to mind control something? And you can mind control some important things, and sometimes that is relevant, but he makes 1 treasure a turn. He's not in white, so you won't have Smothering Tithe. Like, getting to 5 treasures for his effect is harder than you might think. Usually it's just better to use the treasures that he makes to cast more spells. Sometimes it's as simple as that. Let's do one more. Dinotomaton. 3 and a red for an artifact creature dinosaur gnome. What? Alright. It's a 4/3 with Menace. When it enters the battlefield, target creature you control gains Menace until end of turn. Menace is one of the best evasion keywords in my opinion. Flying is great. Trample is great, but confusing. Menace is good. Menace is very good, because it turns combat much trickier. They have to determine whether it's worth trading, because usually someone attacks with a 4/3, they'll block with like a 3/1 or like a 2/5 or something like that. But when something has Menace, it makes it much more tricky, because they don't necessarily know if you have a combat trick or not, and if you do have a combat trick, they could be losing 2 creatures and you could keep yours. Like, there's a very high possibility of that happening. Yeah, Menace is just a very good, clean keyword. I like it. I like it a lot. I'm glad that they've gone with that over something like Intimidate, because that was sort of the precursor in a way. There were cards that had Menace's text before then, but settling on Menace being the evasion keyword for like red and black. Very good. Dinotomaton, it's fine. 4 mana 4/3 Menace is alright. It's an artifact creature. This particular artifact creature dies to a lot of things. Dies to Lightning Bolt, dies to any artifact removal spell. Like, it's definitely fragile. The difference between 3 and 4 toughness is huge. But giving something like, say, Death Touch Menace, or giving a Trampler Menace first strike and Menace is brutal. Yeah, Dinotomaton, perfectly fine. Well, I think that's enough for this episode of Live in the Library. Who knows if it'll be a recurring series, but if you enjoyed watching me bumble my way through talking about these random cards, yapping, let me know in the comments below. And once again, thank you everybody for the patience and the support of my channel. Life likes throwing curveballs and challenges, and I'm sure you're all perfectly aware of that. So it means a lot to me that there are still people out there who tune in even when I'm not uploading weekly like I first started. So take care of yourselves, everybody, and I will see you again in the future. Bye-bye!